Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the HazMat podcast, episode number 11. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We actually have our first guest on, albeit he has to work for me, but that's okay.
Paid.
So we'll introduce you all to Jacques. Jacques is our yard manager and sampling manager, and today he has some questions, general questions that we get from customers about asbestos. How you going, Jacques?
Yeah, no, going all good.
Yeah,
Pretty nervous, but we'll get it going.
that's okay. And a lot of people wouldn't know yet. Well, I have referred to in some of the episodes, but you actually produce this podcast, don't you?
Yeah. It's usually behind the camera, so it's my first time in front of it, but see how it goes. Should go good.
Cool. All right. Well, we have, I think 11. We come up with 11
11 questions.
frequently asked questions from people that we get about asbestos and asbestos removal. So hopefully there's at least one in there for everybody. And let's get the ball rolling.
Great. So we'll start off with, is there any specific age range of homes likely to contain asbestos materials?
Specific age range. So not exacting, but certainly from my experience in surveying homes, it would normally, original homes like early 1900s up to 20s, 30s, don't typically contain asbestos. However, the clincher there is there's a good chance of a home's that old, 100 years old, has probably had a renovation done, and in which case asbestos could have been introduced. You know, a new bathroom in the 70s, or styling the kitchen ceiling in the 80s or something like that. So, yeah, if it's an original build, no, you won't really find asbestos if it's that old, but yeah, there's a good chance it's probably been renovated. At the other end of the scale, newer homes, I think rule of thumb, we talk about maybe the year 2000 onwards is not likely to contain asbestos products. So let's say 20s, 30s, the earliest, and post 2000, you're not going to find asbestos either.
Cool. And can asbestos be present in any household items or appliances, furniture?
That's a good question. So not these days. You're not going to find appliances with, new appliances with asbestos parts in them, or it'd be very, very rare. However, there's a lot of old items that used to have asbestos in, old household items, things like oven mitts. You used to be able to get table covers that were made of asbestos, and the reason why those type of things were used is because of the heat insulation quality. So, stop from heat stain to your table.
Or cover, or like cloth?
It's a cloth, yeah, so asbestos cloth. So they make them into table mats. Used to be things like even insoles for footwear made of asbestos, keep your feet cool. So there you go. But yeah, you're not typically going to find anything like that anymore, thank God.
Yeah. What should I do if I'm remodeling my house and it may have asbestos in it?
Well, when you're doing a remodel, it's really a good practice these days to have a survey done beforehand from an asbestos expert. And depending on the scope of your renovation, whether it's just you're doing the kitchen or the bathroom or you're recladding the whole house, depending on the scope, that surveyor can check all the items that you're likely to disturb and be able to identify if they are asbestos or not, so you know beforehand.
Can I sample for asbestos myself, or should I get a professional?
We actually did a podcast on this, I think, was it the last one or a couple of podcasts ago, on how to do a asbestos sample yourself. I would recommend that you have a watch of that and just get some advice on how to do it safely. So yes, you can take the sample yourself if you're comfortable to do it, and you can do it while keeping safe.
If I have asbestos in my home, is my health at risk?
That's a great question.
And how much, if it is?
Yeah, so look, it's very common still. We're working on it, but there's a lot of homes out there with asbestos in them in some form or fashion. And the rule of thumb is asbestos is dangerous when you breathe the loose fibres in. So if it's not being disturbed, then you're really at no risk to your own health. And as I say, it's very typical. A lot of people live in homes for their whole life with asbestos in them and appear to have no ill effect from that. So, I would say without disturbing asbestos, no, you're not at any health risk.
What if I have pets?
Same thing. There's really no scientific study on pets responding to asbestos-related illnesses. It's probably not economical to research, but certainly pets have the same respiratory or similar respiratory system to us, breathe in air and have lungs, and so they could potentially be affected by asbestos. But same as before, if they're not being exposed to loose fibres, then there's really no risk to pets.
What should I do if I think I've disturbed asbestos in my home?
Definitely, my recommendation would be to get yourself out of the environment, that area. If you think you may have disturbed some asbestos, you've damaged a bit of ceiling in a room or something like that, close the door, back off out of there, and arrange for someone like us at HazMat to come and take a look. I think the first port of call is to get a sample, and we will determine if that material is asbestos or not. If it is found to be asbestos, then we can look at tidying that up and getting it sorted out. But certainly the first thing to do if you disturb what you think might be asbestos is to get out of there.
How will I know if I've contracted an asbestos illness?
That's a tricky one. Asbestos related illnesses have quite a long latency period. And what that means is you can have the illness but have no sign of that for quite some time, or not develop the illness for quite some time from the exposure. That's to blame. So it can be in some cases 20 years. So unfortunately, you're not going to find out straight away if you've contracted anything. But yeah, if you have, I would say, if it is down the track and you're having breathing difficulties, especially, you should probably see a doctor, and that should be a consideration.
Is there some type of screening I can do to find out how much asbestos I have in my lungs?
I have no idea about that, to be honest. I believe the proper chest scanning equipment would probably show the deterioration in your lungs, but maybe not show the actual fibres themselves in there.
What are the laws around selling a house that has asbestos in it?
So if you're going to sell a house and you know it to have asbestos in it, then you really need to disclose that. I think that would come more under the Real Estate Act than the asbestos regulations, but certainly, just like any fault or defect with a home, it needs to be disclosed as part of the marketing and as part of the sales documents.
Yeah. Do I have to have asbestos removed if it's been identified?
No, I do get, obviously for this podcast, we get these questions a lot, but no, if you find out you have asbestos, you're actually under no obligation to do anything with it at all. You're not compelled to remove it. It's certainly going to be your choice depending on budget and depending on your own personal views, but there is no legal obligation to remove asbestos.
Final question. What if I can't afford a professional asbestos removal? A full removal?
It's very expensive to do a full removal. So some of the interim measures we can take is, one, you can look at ways to isolate the area, and we have an example. I have an example of a roof cavity, somebody's roof cavity or attic that was found to have asbestos all throughout it, and it wasn't practical to do a big clean-up job for the client at the time, and so we ended up just putting a sign up and a padlock on the access hatch. Therefore, no one's going to go up there. If you do go up there, you're advised with the sign that it's asbestos, and you're not going to breathe in any fibres and be put in danger that way. Some of the other methods are to cover over the material. So like vinyl flooring, if you can't afford to remove it, you can look at actually covering over with a timber product or a new flooring. Again, that'll stop the material from being disturbed and again keep you safe. And what's another one? Painting.
Work as a permanent solution.
No, I mean, look, I think eventually, like anything in a home, it's going to have to be dealt with at some point. But if it's not on the cards for you, it's a perfectly safe alternative to isolate the area or to cover it over. Or in some cases, sealing it with paint. You know, painting over things will keep the fibers locked in and keep you a lot safer.
Any type of paint or something specific?
I think anything's better than nothing. There's not probably a specific asbestos paint as such or sealing paint, but most paint products or primers are probably a good method of actually keeping things locked away.
Yeah, I think that I found painty, so hopefully our viewers learned a little bit.
Very good. All right, well, we've run through what we needed to. We've got, hopefully everyone's taken something away from that, and we will be back next week with another episode of the HazMat podcast. Maybe with Jacques, we'll see. All right. Thank you very much. And please like and subscribe to the channel. All right. Thanks. Bye.